Imagine standing in the middle of a once bustling main street. The echoes of wagon wheels and hurried footsteps are gone. No laughter spills from the saloon doors. No clanging hammers ring from the blacksmith's forge. Only silence, silence and the sigh of the desert wind. This was once the heart of the American dream. People came here with nothing but hope in their hands, chasing gold, silver, fertile land, or the promise of a new beginning. And for a moment in time, these towns thrived. But now, they stand hollow, monuments to ambition swallowed by the sands of history. Today, we step into the forgotten world of the American frontier's ghost towns. Places where entire communities vanished, leaving behind only the skeletal remains of their hopes. What secrets do these empty streets still whisper? And what lessons do they leave for us, standing here more than a century later? The story of America's ghost towns begins with the story of ambition. In the early 19th century, the western frontier stretched like an uncharted canvas, beckoning dreamers, wanderers, and opportunists. The promise of the West was irresistible. Land for farming, gold for the taking, freedom for those seeking to escape the old order of the East. By the 1840s, the cry of "Go West" had become a thunderous chorus. Wagon trains snaked across prairies, braving hunger, storms, and the constant threat of attack. Families risked everything for the chance at something better. These were people of immense courage or immense desperation, staking their future on a landscape both harsh and promising. And so, towns sprang up almost overnight. At first, they were nothing more than a cluster of tents or shacks along a riverbank where gold dust glittered in the water. But soon came sawmills, general stores, saloons, schools, and churches. The bones of civilization stretched into the wilderness. To walk into one of these towns in its prime was to walk into a place alive with ambition. You would hear the piano playing in a saloon, the laughter of miners boasting of their finds, the clatter of hooves on wooden boardwalks. Children ran between homes, while women tended gardens behind rough-hewn fences. But beneath the optimism lay fragility. These towns were born of opportunity, yes, but also of uncertainty. They were only as strong as the resources that sustained them. And when the veins of gold thinned, when the soil turned barren, or when the railroads charted their paths elsewhere, that fragility would be exposed. The most famous of these towns were the boomtowns, places where fortune arrived in a flash and disappeared just as suddenly. Take Bodie, California, perhaps the most iconic ghost town of them all. In 1859, miners struck gold here, and by the late 1870s, Bodie was booming with nearly 10,000 residents. The streets roared with energy. Dozens of saloons lined Main Street, and gunfights were not uncommon. Bodie became synonymous with both opportunity and lawlessness. A little girl once wrote in her diary, "Goodbye, God, I'm going to Bodie." But by the 1880s, the mines began to fail. People left in droves, seeking fortune elsewhere. By the turn of the century, Bodie was already in steep decline. What remains today are empty homes with furniture still inside, bottles on shelves, and prayer books left on altars, an eerie snapshot of abandonment. Or consider Rhyolite, Nevada, a town born of the gold rush in 1904. Within 2 years, it boasted 3 newspapers, an opera house, electric lights, and even an ice cream parlor. It looked destined for greatness, yet by 1911, the mines were depleted. By 1920, Rhyolite was deserted, its grand buildings left to crumble under the desert sun. Across the West, the pattern repeated. The Klondike in Alaska, Silver Reef in Utah, Jerome in Arizona, The rise was fast, the fall even faster. Each place tells the same story. Where there is wealth, there is hope. And where hope dies, silence follows. But it wasn't just mining. Some towns sprang up around railroads. When the rail shifted routes, towns that once thrived with travelers became irrelevant overnight. Farming communities faced droughts, dust storms, and market crashes, leaving once fertile valleys barren of people. The boomtown was a phenomenon born of chance, and chance is rarely kind for long. If you step carefully into these towns today, you'll find not just ruins, but lives. Etched into dust, preserved in fragments, every artifact left behind is a clue to someone's story. There is the story of Poker Alice Tubbs, a woman who made her fortune not through mining, but through cards, dealing in saloons and outsmarting men twice her size. In towns like Deadwood, her presence defied the traditional roles of women on the frontier. There are the nameless prospectors who struck it rich, only to lose it all in a night of gambling or drink. Their brief fortunes evaporated as quickly as the gold they carried in their pouches. There were also families, like the Johnsons of Bannack, Montana. They opened a boarding house, offering hot meals and beds to weary travelers. For a time they prospered, serving judges, sheriffs, and miners alike. But when Bannack's mines went dry, so did their livelihood. The family vanished into history, their home left to rot. Each ghost town holds hundreds of these untold tales. But without people to speak them, they remain in fragments. Initials carved into wood, a child's shoe lying in the dirt, a headstone leaning in the sun. To walk among these places is to feel history's presence, not as words on a page, but as echoes all around you. Some of the most haunting images of the frontier's ghost towns are the buildings themselves. An opera house with its stage frozen mid-performance, the curtain long since rotted away. A school where chalk still clings to the blackboard, lessons unfinished. General stores with their shelves sagging, jars and tins untouched for more than a century.
Howdy.
These are not just ruins. They are relics of ambition. They remind us that these towns were not merely camps of survival. They were attempts at permanence, at civilization, at culture. People built churches, theaters, and libraries because they believed in the future. Today, preservation efforts vary. Some ghost towns, like Bodie, are protected as historical parks, maintained in what's called arrested decay, kept from collapse, but not restored. Others crumble each year, claimed by wind, rain, and neglect. The debate continues. Should we preserve these towns as memorials, or let nature reclaim them as it always intended? Either way, their presence in the modern landscape reminds us that no empire, no community, no dream is immune to time. What then can we learn from the ghost towns of the frontier? At first glance, they are simply relics of history. But look closer, and they are mirrors, reflecting truths that are as relevant today as they were a century ago. The first lesson: prosperity is fleeting. Just as a gold vein can run dry, so too can an industry collapse. Ghost towns are not just about the past, they are warnings of the future. The second lesson: ambition comes at a cost. For every fortune made, there were countless lives broken, families uprooted, and communities abandoned. The American frontier was built on risk, and with risk comes loss. The third lesson: nature always wins. Buildings crumble, roads fade, wood rots, but the desert, the mountains, the prairie, they remain indifferent to human dreams. In today's world, we can see similar cycles. Technology booms, housing bubbles, industries rising and falling overnight. Will our skyscrapers one day stand as empty husks the way Bodie's saloons now do? Perhaps the ghost towns of the frontier are more than history. Perhaps they are prophecy. Walk through these streets and you will hear it. The whispers of a time not so long ago. Voices of miners, merchants, mothers and children carried away on the wind. They are not entirely gone. Their stories live on in the wood, in the stone, in the dust. The ghost towns of the American frontier remind us that history is not dead. It waits in silence for those willing to listen. If this journey moved you, we invite you to look closer at your own landscapes. Somewhere nearby, there may be forgotten places with stories left untold. Thank you for joining us on this journey into abandoned dreams. Until next time, keep seeking the hidden chapters of our past.